All right, I think I'm going to kick off. We just hit 40. I feel like that's a good lucky number. Hello and welcome everyone to this week's AMA. As kind of shown in the invite for this week, the topic of this one is going to be all of the October updates we just pushed live to the LAMINA1 Hub this week, including the launch of our first demo space, the Space Lasers game, NFT items, premium usernames, and also hoping you guys noticed a bunch of bug fixes and UX optimizations that you all really helped us uncover since our last feature launch in September. Before we kick off, in case people are just kind of tuning in this week and haven't been up to date on our quests or what's next, I just dropped an article in the chat that kind of overviews exactly what's new on the hub as of this week and the things that we're focused on testing with the community over the next couple of weeks based off of that. I'm also dropping an awesome video made by our UX lead, Elena Bryan, that kind of goes over everything in an audio-visual format. So you can either read the article or you can watch the quick sort of 5-minute video that'll kind of take you through everything that we just recently released. Today, I'm joined, as per usual, by our CTO, Will Carter, and our Chief Product Officer, Gordon Maddie. And we're going to be talking about what's included in the new launch, what we're interested in testing this time around, and also giving a little bit of a sneak peek at what's next for the L1 BetaNet now that we've gotten this sort of like last big push out. I will say, just up top, we will not be answering questions about Persona Collective. That's an independent test project by our co-founder, Peter Vicenas. It's got its own voice chat and vibrant sub-community of weirdos that you guys are completely running entirely at your discretion. I will say I've read the fan fiction. You guys are fantastic, but we're going to keep things focused on actually, the kind of like main story in the community right now, which is our hub updates and how we're continuing to evolve the LAMINA1 BetaNet. So with that, really just wanted to get started and dive in. We've got a lot of questions and I think new features and things to cover. So I guess to kind of kick things off, before we dive into community questions, Will, Gordon, could you just give us, for the purposes of this AMA, a quick overview of the things that are sort of included in this recent update to the L1 Hub and BetaNet?
Sure, I can take that. So the release focused on kind of extending the current functionality that we started implementing around usernames. So we launched free usernames back in September, and to kind of establish the basic way for people to gain an identity on the LAMINA1 network. And we enhanced usernames to support the ability to buy a premium username. We intentionally have been really trying to think about the economic parameters of usernames and trying to think about different approaches to taking for how those usernames are priced. So we'd love feedback on how that's working for everybody. And then the second real focus for us was really starting to establish infrastructure around assets and how those assets can surface up in spaces and experiences on LAMINA1. And so in order to do that, we built a mini game called Space Lasers that demonstrates a capability around being able to collect assets in game and then use those assets in the game. And I'm really focused on kind of defining those assets at the base layer so that we can then reuse them across other experiences and spaces.
Totally. I actually had like a follow-up question just about Space Lasers. I mean, Space Lasers kind of on the outside, it's a fairly simple demo game. A bunch of folks have been saying that it's exciting. It's a really like nice way to kind of chill out in between work and stuff like that. But there is like a lot kind of behind that game, from the metadata, the smart contracts. We also kind of dropped one of our first public GitHub code drops like alongside with the demo game. So I don't know if either Gordon or Will, if you guys kind of want to go into, some of the back end, like what makes the game kind of interesting from a development perspective, and like what does it say about what we're building for at LAMINA1? I'm going to drop some of the GitHub links while you guys answer too.
That sounds good. Space lasers is a lot of things. One goal that we had in developing it was to start dogfooding the experience of creating space, integrating the hub, integrating interoperable assets, and like learning from that experience. But another major component to it is providing the community with like a really approachable demo project that they can use to kickstart their own development of spaces and integration with like the hub and the various technologies that we're releasing. So there's a couple components that we've built into spaces that are kind of demonstrate what those integrations look like. Some of them are the NFT space lasers that you earn from playing it. Those will be open source smart contracts that you'll be able to fork and use for your own purposes. There's currently three primary kind of asset categories in that smart contract suite. One of them is like a standard space laser, which is kind of a fungible smart contract. They're all the same. So every red laser is the same as every other red laser. And every blue laser is the same as every other blue laser. So that's like kind of one component. If you have like a fungible asset within an experience or a game, you'll be able to fork that and use it to add those types of NFTs into your experience. And then the mystery laser was kind of a fun extension of that where we said, when you earn that mystery laser, we're going to randomly generate the traits for that item on demand. And so that's kind of like a second extension to that you could integrate into your game as well. And then finally, the third category is a trophy, which is sort of just an achievement that you can use and take with you when you leave the experience. So those are the three categories of like kind of smart contract assets that we've currently baked into it. And again, once we open source these, if they're not already open source, you'll be able to use them for your own purposes. They will be iterative. So like as we define what we want interoperability to look like, and as we get ideas from you guys on what kind of challenges you faced or kind of suggestions you have, we'll be iterating and improving these smart contracts as time goes on. But right now, I think it's a really good, really approachable way to start learning about Unity, to start learning about Web3 integration in a way where the stakes are fairly low. So the other kind of major component to Space Lasers, besides the smart contracts and the item integration, was the actual onboarding of the user. Like, how do you authenticate a user into the experience? And traditionally in Web3 games, that's done by making them log into their wallet. And then, every time you generate a Web3 interaction within the experience, you're basically forcing them to sign a wallet transaction. And that's pretty bad user experience and something we wanted to avoid. And so we created sort of a streamlined onboarding system that utilizes the space the space registry and the metaverse asset dispenser, which I think we'll talk a little bit about later. And it allows you to bring a user into the game and interact with the chain and earn NFTs without ever having to know what their private key is. And we expect to have a couple of different integrations around authenticating users, but this is kind of like the simplest and lowest stakes one. And so we thought it was a good one to insert into Space Lasers and get people kind of kickstarted.
Awesome. Thanks so much, Will. I'm going to start diving into some community questions. So I trawled these from the block survey and also just from questions that I've been pulling from the community. I've been watching the servers super closely this week in the aftermath of the rollout. So the one that I want to kick off on is one by Rosa Alexiev, who asks, in general, so is a space just a virtual world? Kind of wondering, what are spaces? What's our vision for them, and what's the best way to access them on LAMINA1?
I'll take this one. I mean, a space is really the most simplest term, just an application. We call them spaces as kind of like a way to describe the possibility of what a space could be. I mean, it could be 2D, it could be 3D, it could be a game, it could be a collaborative community space. there's lots of different ways spaces might manifest. And at LAMINA1, we're focused broadly across kind of all the categories of entertainment, including music, film, gaming, etc. And so these spaces we expect to kind of manifest in different ways. We've been spending a lot of time with our early access program partners. Many of them are exploring gaming. And so we imagine there are going to be spaces that are more gaming-like that are available on LAMINA1. But ultimately, we kind of go across different segments and categories and are open to any type of application experience. That could be a browser-based application. It could be a downloadable application. And really for us, it's about, how do we support the interoperability of assets, identities, and your social graph across those different spaces. So we over the coming months expect to see different types of spaces being launched on LAMINA1. We're currently making them available to people through the LAMINA1 Hub. Although the LAMINA1 Hub is really just rendering what's happening on chain, and so we have a new component that we built on the back end called the Spaces Registry, which is a place where the space is kind of registered and therefore known to exist from that point forward. And right now, it's a bit controlled in terms of what can be added to the registry, but ultimately that registry is going to be permissionless and open to anyone, enabling anyone to talk to the registry to register a space and make it available on the LAMINA1 network.
We've also had, so within our first 24 hours of testing, we had over 1,000 people test out the Space Lasers game, and we're getting a lot of strategy questions from the community. So a couple of questions from Cornelius. Which is the strongest laser, and any tips on achieving the highest score in Space Lasers that you guys have?
So I think the purple laser is by far the strongest. I guess I should say the mystery laser is randomly generated, as I mentioned earlier. So it's probably possible that you could get something stronger than the purple laser, but I've gotten the highest scores by far with the purple laser. And for me, my strategy is the purple laser is all about timing. It shoots really slow, but you can basically clear the whole screen if you are lucky and it hits an enemy at the right time. So in order to maximize the chance of it hitting an enemy, because it does go in random directions, I try to stay kind of in the middle of the screen. And then you try to time the shot for right when a bunch of enemies are about to spawn. So if you ever let more than 2 or 3 enemies on the screen at any given time, you're gonna lose. You're already dead. So you want to time it so that you're constantly clearing the entire screen of enemies per shot. And it's difficult to do that. You're gonna have to do a couple of runs to get kind of in the groove. But that's one major strategy. The other one, which is kind of counterintuitive, is when the orange guys come on the screen, don't move around a lot, because they're wild little I don't know what they're called, fireballs. They'll chase you, or they move a lot faster the faster you move. So I actually find standing still or moving in very determined fashions will allow you to kind of move between them, or they'll ignore you if you're not moving around a lot. So stay in the middle of the screen, time your shots, and then don't move around too much. Those are my suggestions.
Oh man, I always panic when the orange dudes pop up on the
Totally,
screen,
yeah.
so that's a really good tip. Oh man, cool. Well, Jacko Girl actually asks a follow-up question about the mystery lasers. So, is it possible to get mystery lasers, or can you just unlock the one mystery laser?
Currently you can only unlock the one. There's no real restriction on being able to earn more, other than we haven't coded it so that you can earn more. It is something we talked about doing. It might be something that gets extended or added at some point, and I think it'd be a good extension. It's probably also I guess if I had to describe an ideal how I envision space lasers growing over time, it would be kind of community driven. So part of, again, the reason we released Space Lasers was for you guys so that you could see some sample code and a sample project. And I've heard a lot of really good suggestions for ways to improve it. And like, I want to empower the community to make those changes. And so like when the code comes out, I want to try to find a way to like organize the community to grow kind of the functionality of the game over time. And so we'll be looking at a few ways to do that. I've been looking at Weaver again because that is kind of one of their like primary functionalities is like encouraging joint development of these 3D experiences. So yes, it's something that could be implemented into the game very easily. It's not something you can do currently, but I hope we as a community can start improving it and adding these new features.
Awesome. I'm actually going to drop a link to our latest AMA with Weaver if people are like, what are you talking about? Weaver are one of our early access partners. They have awesome, as Will mentioned, sort of like collaborative game development tools that we're working with. So popping that on if you want to learn a little bit more about Weaver. But yeah, I mean, you heard it here first. Will and I actually talked yesterday about like, what are some quests we can put up down the line once we launch all of the code for Space Lasers to encourage community members to start pulling the game apart and creating new versions of the game that kind of incorporate a lot of this feedback. So definitely stay tuned. I'll keep you guys posted on that. I think that should be a really fun community building initiative. I've got another one actually from Jackal Girl as well, which I think is super interesting. And I actually wasn't quite sure how to answer in the feeds, but Jackal Girl is requesting more information about the L1 Metaverse asset dispenser. In particular, I mean, her question is super simple. How's this game being paid for? Like when a player wins an NFT laser or trophy, like it doesn't cost any L1 BetaNet tokens to play. So who's paying for the gas? Like, how does that work?
I'm just gonna let Gordon take this because this is sort of his brainchild, and I think it's going to be a really powerful tool moving forward. Right now, we pay for it, so we, as in like the team operating the Metaverse Asset Dispenser, are paying for the minting of the smart contracts. It's we envision a couple of different options here, and again, this is like the easiest onboarding for an experienced creator. So we don't require you to manage the user's keys, and we don't require you to manage cryptocurrency to pay for the user's assets as they're minted. So we do that all on the space registry and the Metaverse Asset Dispenser side. In the future, there might be other options to that, though. Like we might open it up so that the user themselves pays as their dispensed assets, or the experience itself has like a global wallet that it can use to pay. And in each of those, we'll have like maybe different functionalities. But I think like there's going to be a lot of richer functionality in the ways that we leverage the Metaverse Asset Dispenser and the types of assets that you can receive and what those assets kind of encourage in terms of behavior across the metaverse. I don't know if we're like ready to reveal that full vision just yet, but we're really excited about kind of the direction that the Metaverse Asset Dispenser is going to be going.
Gordon, anything else to say about your brainchild, the Metaverse Asset Dispenser?
Thanks for that, Will. Sorry, I was driving. I think that yeah, those things are all correct, and really, it's about how do we support effective and efficient distribution of assets into spaces. And so, one idea would be, the ability to collect an asset in one space that you can use in another space. And so, this is really kind of setting the seeds of how, a space might market their assets to other users to intrigue them and get them into their space. So kind of a form of marketing. So imagine I'm playing Space Lasers, and instead of collecting, and I've played it 4 times or 5 times, and I've collected everything, and I play it again, and instead of collecting another Space Laser, I collect an asset I could use in a different place. So we're really thinking about how best to present that to the user and get them build their awareness of other spaces that are available on the network and give them something useful to do as soon as they get into the space.
Awesome. Kartik asks, we're talking about kind of like earning and collecting these NFTs, but are there any sort of like future benefits or use cases planned for collecting these Space Laser NFTs? Like, once you've played the game, a couple of times and you have all of these lasers in your wallet, like, do you have any plans for how they'll be used later on, or any ways that people will be able to use these assets on the L1 BetaNet?
I think as Gordon was kind of hinting at, yeah, we envision them being interoperable and usable potentially. Like part of this is the whole kind of discussion around interoperability and how you enabling it while conserving like the creators kind of creative license to their experience, making sure that you're not destroying their vision for the experience by bringing like lasers into a high fantasy game, for example. But yeah, the goal here is for you to be able to take the Space Laser NFT, use it within our game, Space Lasers, but then also to take it with you into other spaces that start getting added into the network. And we've already talked about a few ways that could happen, and I think we'll share a little bit more when those spaces start popping up.
Amazing. I'm going to answer one from Amy Chains with just like another kind of like kind of by like riffing off of an answer that you had, Will, but Amy Chains is kind of asking, is there any plan to make these lasers scalable? For example, increasing their power based on number of enemies killed over time? Will there be a way to reload the life bar during the game, or other game features from the community that you're considering? I think, as Will kind of hinted, Amy Chains, like, number one, I'm definitely taking all of these ideas and kind of relaying them back to the team. But I think in general is like we wanted to provide kind of the framework of this experience. But I think like those types of ideas and like improvements for the game like is super exciting for us that you've started like riffing off of that, because we do ultimately want to kind of like open it up and encourage folks to like fork the game, start building like different variations of it, building upon it, and like really testing out the kind of back end infrastructure that we developed. So is there any plan? I mean, you tell us. Like, let's get working together. Let's start collaborating on the kind of next steps around this. I actually do, though, want to kind of jump over to, we got a bunch of questions around premium usernames, which I know is kind of like another big update to the LAMINA1 Hub. Obviously, the last big update that we had, we introduced the L1 identity service and the ability to reserve unique metaverse usernames and, start saving display names, and start kind of setting your metaverse identity on the L1 chain. But obviously we rolled out premium usernames, and Jackal Girl asks, could you all go a little bit into the difference between like premium usernames as display names, premium usernames as wallet identification? Like, how do premium use, like, aside from like being able to just have like a nice like clean username without any 4-number hashes attached to the end of it, like what are the importance of these usernames on kind of like the back end of BetaNet, and like how do they work when like sending tokens to people or like identifying people within the L1 identity service? I'd love to dive into that a little bit more with you guys.
Yeah, so the L1NS, L1 naming service is actually a pretty simple concept. It's based off of, DNS. For those of you who are familiar with the technology, it's a fork of ENS. And it's basically just a way for you to map a human readable name to an address. And so you can imagine it's a long ledger. You can imagine it's like a spreadsheet with a couple columns. And then like one of those columns is the human readable username that you define. And the other column is the address that it maps to. And it has both forward and reverse resolving. So like you can either go to it and ask for the primary human readable username that's mapped to a specific wallet address, or you can ask for a wallet address that's mapped to a human readable username. There's some distinctions when you do that that I won't get into because they're kind of technical, but I will say yes, you can continue, you can map as many or register as many of these usernames as you want. And all you'll be doing, like if you're using the same wallet address to purchase these usernames, then in that long spreadsheet, that all those rows of registered usernames, you'll just have multiple rows that point to your address. And so you're more than able to do that as long as you have L1 tokens to purchase them. Right now, we don't currently support the ability to switch between them in the hub. It's just something we need to develop and implement. But when you do purchase a bunch of them, you're only going to see the most recent one you've purchased in the hub. But you'll still own all the previous ones that you've owned in the past. And unless you specifically do some, like make a custom smart contract call, they'll all still point to your address. So, even if you've changed your username, as long as you haven't done anything to that previous username, it'll still point to your wallet address. So if someone sends money to it, it'll still come into your wallet. I think that answered most of the questions.
Yeah, totally. I think, I have probably 17 premium usernames through testing that you could probably point to my account at.
And
But
we,
yeah, I
we
think
definitely
it's
want to, enable you to switch between them, and it'll come, but it's just not available at the moment.
totally. We also had a bunch of questions from community members, Kwesi, FYZ, Sergey Takov, etc. Just a bunch, just kind of around like, why can't I reserve a premium username? So just wanted to acknowledge that we did kick off the launch. Things were running really smoothly, and then we just had like kind of a bump in the road with the LAMINA1 ID bot where it booted itself offline for about 24 hours. So, Will, could you provide us just like a quick status report for the community on the status of being able to reserve your premium username on the hub, and maybe like a kind of quick explanation on the diagnostic process behind that?
Yeah, so two things happened here. The primary bug was, I mean, it was not a bug. What happened was for a couple of hours, um, we let all of our bootstrap nodes. So the bootstrap nodes are the validators that we as an organization operate within the beta net. So for a period of, I don't know, I want to say like 8 to 10 hours, we let them expire, and the community validators basically operated the entire network. So cool. You guys operated the beta net by yourselves for a while. Congratulations. But because the identity subnet was operated entirely by Bootstrap nodes, because those nodes went offline, the identity subnet stopped validating transactions. And so once we restaked those validators and they came back online, the identity subnet came back online as well. We did learn that when you do that, it automatically took all of the transactions that had been submitted during that period and executed them, which was good to know. So we learned a little bit on our side about kind of what happens when a subnet goes offline and comes back online. But it wasn't necessarily a bug, I would say. It's just we let some of the validators in the network go offline, and they were the ones that were running the identity subnet. The LAMINA1 ID bot was getting a lot of traffic, and Bernie was telling me that it was causing some of our shorter timeouts to trigger. And I think he just extended the timeouts for that, and it should be a lot more stable now. So currently, premium usernames should work fine. But again, if you're running into issues, share them with us. If you can get one of the community members or one of the team members live, if you have like a unique bug, like we'd be happy to get a little bit of information from you on what's going on.
Yeah, totally. Whenever we ask you as mods or core team members, like a bunch of follow-up questions about what you're experiencing, it's because we're like trying to diagnose it. So like definitely like, especially if you're experiencing a bug within the hours that like a bunch of us core team members are online and you want to hop on for like a quick screen share and like live situation, like our devs have been asking me to like link you guys up with them, especially in this first week. So don't be shy. Let us know if you've got a live bug that you kind of want to show us and screen share it, like tag me. Definitely interested in a bunch of that stuff. The first step in clearing away any bug or issue is to be able to replicate it live with our developers. So we'd really, really appreciate that. Um,
Yeah,
I actually,
I think it's worth also worth noting that the kind of L1 ID bot is exists only because of some the current functionality available within the code base from Avalanche. And what that means is that when we're running multiple subnets within the LAMINA1 ecosystem of subnetworks, we have to do this handoff essentially between the subnetworks and switch out the tokens that are being used in those networks. So you can't use L1 as the native currency across the networks to pay for things. And so we had to create this L1 ID token to be able to pay for those usernames on the LAMINA1 naming service. And so, but going forward, there's a new feature that Avalanche is currently in the process of auditing and testing called Hyper SDK, which enables a feature that they call teleporting that allows a token to be used across any network, any subnetwork within the system. So in the future, we will be integrating that technology, and that would support the ability to pay for your token using L1, and there not being this kind of funky exchange on the back end to coordinate the actual finalization of that payment. And so what we'll see is a much more stable system without these different handoffs and having to have this ID bot in the way essentially. So it will get much better in the future, but certainly do let us know if you're having problems. We do want to provide a stable environment for people to use.
we got a follow-up question from Ed Keys, who's asking, can we look forward to some more developer documentation for L1IS? Right now, it's not super feasible for third-party experiences to use it without inside information. Ed's definitely been asking me for a bunch of hookups into it. We've got like I would say like a good start in terms of documentation, but are we planning any additional updates or to release more info later on?
Yeah, we are. Yeah, the identity service and the bot are, they're still in development. It's iterative. We weren't really planning on people building tools around them, so we didn't kind of focus uh, like our resources on documenting exactly how they work, but we can definitely do that. I know I've, worked a little bit with Ed over the past few days on helping him integrate, as well as Peter with the Persona Collective. But it is, yeah, we'll focus on getting some documentation out there to help anyone who wants to kind of tie directly into the identity service.
Yeah, I asked about this actually for you, Ed, a couple of weeks back, and I think, we're continuing to work on it. And I was basically told like, we're gonna do a couple of more updates to it, and then we can release it. I'm kind of the one who goes in and interviews the heck out of the devs to get the documentation in place. So it definitely takes a little while, but it's definitely on our roadmap. And again, we've sent you a couple of things on the back end. I think if you are like a developer interested in opening things up and stuff, again, I think like reach out to me. We're kind of slowly, as kind of like alluded to in the spaces documentation and in the blog post, we've started this kind of Space Lasers demo is like our first step at being able to start onboard creators into like launching their own experiences and being able to pick apart our code and stuff. And we're going to be opening that up further and further as we bring on like more spaces and more partners. We're kind of starting out small, and we started out, we launched our own internal experience, then Peter launched kind of his side experience that kind of like pressure tested the integration, and we've got some really excited spaces coming up with our partners as well that'll continue to kind of inform that process. Obviously, we're like learning as we go. That's kind of been a huge part of our mission since day one. So definitely, all good things come in time. Actually, kind of related to that, Sherbert0123 asked, can you just share some insights again into the kind of inspiration behind Space Laser's demo and how it fits into the overall vision for the LAMINA1 Hub in Bayonetta? Got a lot of kind of like fire react signs underneath this in the chat. I think people are really interested. Like, how does this latest release fit into like the overall vision of what we're building?
I mean, the vision behind it, well, the creative vision is all Joel's, and I think he described in very simple terms why he chose the experience that he chose. But just to reiterate, I think on my previous points, the vision for space lasers is a bit of a gateway drug for you guys, the community, to start developing interoperable spaces. So the vision was to keep it simple. It had to be something approachable. Anyone, even if you're new to Unity, you're new to game development, you'd be able to jump in and kind of understand what's going on behind the curtain. We wanted all of the interactions with the chain to be as kind of low stakes. And I say low stakes as like the risk of getting something wrong is very low. You're not managing users' keys. You're not requiring them to pay for assets, so potentially losing their money. And so like we wanted this to be as streamlined, easy to approach experience as possible for those of you who are kind of like coming into this for the first time. And then we wanted to kind of like build assets that were probably broadly interoperable. Like lasers are a pretty broad, easy to imagine technology that you could see like going into other spaces, whether it's visual only. So a big component of what Joel was building into these lasers was purely visual. And that revolved around like color grades and color stops and making interesting like combinations of them that you could then take with you and apply to other experiences in a way that like even if the laser itself as a technology doesn't fit into the space's kind of creative direction, then at least you could take like the color grades and color stops. So when we're talking about high fantasy, like cool, you can't have a laser, but maybe you can have a fireball and it has all these cool unique colors and attributes. So it was to keep things generic, easy enough to approach, but then also kind of provide for the ability to have it grow over time with you guys, the community, and then also for it to be able to accept kind of interoperable NFTs both in and out of the experience. Like Peter and I have talked about, like how cool would it be if you could have your Persona Collective avatar be a pilot in your Space Laser ship, and what that would mean. Like, would it change the avatar of the ship? Would it, change the types of enemies you face? Would it change even, his avatars have different characteristics like strength, intelligence, charisma? Like, how would those affect the capabilities of the ship as it's playing the game? So like these are all things that we hope to work with you guys, the community, on developing along with your own visions and suggestions. But that's kind of what it is. It's like the seed for growing kind of a community-driven experience that kind of demonstrates all of the technology that we're building and some of the helps us dog food some of these um, interoperable asset challenges that we're working through.
Mivivek asks, can I buy or sell NFTs on the LAMINA1 Hub? Is that available yet?
No, it's not. It's definitely in the roadmap, some type of marketplace, but it's not a primary feature we're working on at the moment. Just, I mean, there's not very many of us, so we have to pick and choose very carefully which ones we prioritize first. It's an important one to us, and it's definitely coming, but it's not available yet. If anyone in the community's comfortable or familiar with marketplaces, like it's, you guys could create an unofficial marketplace in the meantime. It could be very simple. But for now, yeah, there is no official marketplace in the hub.
Awesome.
Yeah,
And
and
Sergey,
it's really reflective. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah, that kind of decision is really reflective of kind of what's really needed right now. If we look at the history of NFTs and the investment in technology and tooling to support them, it's predominantly been focused on marketplaces and trading. And what that means is that there hasn't been as much attention on, how these NFTs can be used in other places other than trading. And that's really where we've been spending a lot of time starting to put in place those seeds in terms of, increasing the amount of metadata, for example, that we're capturing around an asset, how that metadata is stored, how it can be used, what that metadata contains. Because when you start kind of thinking beyond marketplaces and start thinking about how an item might surface up in one or more spaces, there's a lot more to it under the hood. And so the investment is really, the focus, is really around starting to, make strides in terms of improving how NFTs can be used and the utility around them beyond trading. But certainly trading is an important component, and we can't build these things without considering how they might be dropped initially, traded in secondary markets, etc. So we will be working on some core technology around that, particularly, for example, supporting royalties and enforcing those royalties as they get sold, as NFTs get traded in marketplaces. So there are some very important use cases, but certainly we've been focused much more on interoperability within spaces to begin with.
Awesome. Yeah, that actually leads perfectly into the kind of like last question I wanted to ask from Sergey 1105 to kind of wrap this session up. But like, aside from the like, can I buy or sell NFTs? What about creating or minting your own NFTs? Like, what activities are coming up on the platform? Like, what can people kind of look forward to? What are we working on now that this big kind of launch is out? Where are our attentions lying now? What's next?
Yeah, so really, we've started out with some basic capabilities with the space lasers, and also the trophy that you can win within space lasers. But the actual kind of total set of NFT types and capabilities is very vast. If we think about all the different kind of sectors that the NFTs can be used in, and going forward, we're really investing in broadening out those capabilities to support lots of different use cases, and also critically building. We just started building a new feature called the Studio, which is a no code self-service tool that enables people to create NFTs from within the hub without having to know any smart contract coding in order to be able to do that. And so our approach there is really thinking about what people want to create, what the use behind those assets are, and helping them kind of to express and define those assets on the network and mint them for distribution. So that's where the focus is at the moment, and there's quite a lot of kind of features that we have to consider within that. So it's going to be fairly iterative. We're not going to launch something that's going to solve everyone's problems straight away, but we really are going to be kind of making progress in terms of enhancing what an NFT is and what it can do and how it can be used, and bringing those tools to everybody and not just people that know how to write smart contracts.
Awesome. Yeah, I think things are about to get really exciting for our NFT creator community beyond, the kind of initial NFT creator competitions that we've held. So definitely stay tuned. I've seen the early designs, and they are already looking really cool. Anyway, that's it. That we hit our kind of 47-minute mark for the AMA. We're gonna have to hop off and continue building. Thank you everyone for showing up. We do have a secret code for this week's AMA, so I'm gonna drop that into the chat here. The secret code will also be available in the recording of the AMA that I post a little bit later on today, but keep it here. Keep it safe. Make sure to redeem it on Zealy for a little bit of XP for attending. We love it when you guys come on and ask us live questions and stay up to date with us. As I'm sure a lot of you regulars know, this is kind of one of the best ways to really get to know what's next. We share a lot of things in words here before we're quite ready to share it in writing. So again, thanks so much. Next week, we're going to continue focusing on the latest feature launch. I'm going to be releasing 3 new quests next week that really encourage folks to dive like kind of deeper, more into the back end and the behind the scenes info that Will and Gordon kind of talked about today. Obviously, these are the things that we really hope are going to empower builders and creators to begin, playing around with and launching their own interoperable experiences and asset collections on LAMINA1. That's kind of our big focus, right? Like we're in a really interesting and cool phase where we're starting to kind of bring this interoperable open metaverse to life. And this kind of first launch was one of the first steps in doing that, after releasing the Emergence SDK to empower you to link up your experiences on chain. Again, like everything we're trying to do is like step by step to empower you guys. We are not going to have an AMA next Friday. In fact, actually, the entire L1 team is actually going to be hiking on Friday in person together. We're having a big offsite in LA next week, and it's super exciting to me because we're a very distributed team, and it's the first time that like all of us will be in a room together in person at once for like a very long time. So I'll definitely keep you all posted on what we're up to as much as I can next week. Maybe, I'll even try to open up some questions to all live during some sessions. We're going to be having a lot of kind of big picture talks about the future vision of LAMINA1, and I'll definitely keep you posted on the inside as I do as always. But thank you guys so much. Really appreciate it. There's no Zealy test though. There should be a Zealy task. I'm going to go into the Zealy and see why you guys can't find the task. And if I need to post it up a little bit later on or convene with the mods, I will let you know in Space Lasers in general. Apologies about the snafu. I think we should have had one.
Reminder, now's your last
Yeah.
chance to claim your airdrop if you have not. So
Oh, yeah.
do it. I'll be just want to get as many channels as possible. So yeah, if you did receive an airdrop and you haven't claimed it yet, make sure you do it today.
Yeah, definitely. I was going to put out a big announcement to the community again today, but yes, our claim period was supposed to be up on Wednesday. We're giving folks a couple of extra days just because y'all have basically been slamming the airdrop bots like crazy over the last 48 hours. I will say if you've already claimed, you do not need to claim again. Your airdrop tokens are safe. You do not need to mass withdraw. Withdrawals will stay open through the end of BetaNet. If you miss a withdrawal period, it's no big deal. That withdrawal will just stack and you can just withdraw next, like more tokens after the 72-hour period. So I will say, if you're already claimed, if you could just not mess with the bot for like 48 hours so we can get the last like few people in, that would be awesome. But yeah, or 24 hours, I guess. They're going to go down tomorrow morning Pacific Standard Time. So yeah, if you have not claimed your airdrop, please claim it. All right, that's it. I will get that quest up in the next like 5 minutes, y'all. Thank you. Bye, guys.